Welcome everyone. I'm Marianne Murphy-Zarzana and I'm the director of the creative writing program here at Southwest Minnesota State University, and I'm delighted to welcome Kevin Zepper tonight. Kevin teaches writing of all kinds at Minnesota State University in Moorhead. He's the author of 4 chapbooks, wonderful titles: Suffering from an Apartment Complex, The Fifth Ramon, prose poems, I Bring You Dead Things, and his most recent book, Sugar Town. In this poetry collection, the title and lead poem are homage to harvesting sugar near Moorhead, Minnesota. And this is a review of Kevin's work through a writing style utilizing alliteration and wordplay. A structure emerges that resembles music playing from across fields of grass and wheat. There is a beat here that the reader begins to hum, sing, and tap with the hand that is not holding the book. Another important facet of Kevin's writing style is its accessibility. I would not call it simple, but rather down to earth, digestible, not pompous. The reader feels that Kevin is an observer and that he is one of us, telling a bit of a story, but not giving everything away. Space is left for the reader to relate to an image or situation. In fact, I can still smell the potato salad Mom and Pops used to make for every picnic while reading the piece, Potato Salad. Each poem offers a look at life now and in the past, from somewhere in the heartland of this country. I believe each reader will find something they can relate to and be transported to that moment. And this is comments from one of his colleagues, Tom Tamaro. Kevin Zepper doesn't see the world like the rest of us. He's Alfred E. Newman, Frank Zappa, Bugs Bunny, and Samuel Beckett all rolled into one. He's the guy in the old comic book ads for X-ray glasses who is flabbergasted at what he sees when he puts on the glasses, the stark, naked truth. His poems help us to see through the veneer of so-called propriety and civility to expose the fools and the foolishness in the world. His poems may make us laugh and sometimes cry, but more importantly, they make us keenly aware of why it's necessary to laugh at ourselves. If we don't, someone else will. Read his poems, you'll sleep better tonight. So listen to Kevin's poems, you'll all sleep better tonight.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, it's wonderful to be here. This is my second visit to Southwest, and I'm thinking that if I can get here one more time, you can deputize me and make me an honorary Mustang. I'm a Dragon right now, but I used to drive a Mustang, and I could become a Mustang quite easily. I would like to thank Marianne and James for putting up with me the last couple days and treating me just so princely, and it is really a thrill to be here on your campus. As I mentioned to the Zarzanas, I think, and this is coming from somebody from another university, that in terms of your campus, I think your campus in terms of beauty is tied with Bemidji in terms of the way it looks. It looks like a real good place to learn and be a student and et cetera. It's just a good place. So, and good people who want you to learn a lot. All right. I'm going to read some things that are not part of any collection. They're sort of orphan poems looking for homes. And this is a piece I wrote at Naropa called Outside the Sunflower Market in Boulder, Colorado, July. The young woman wears blue and white snowflake pajama pants and a pink fun fur sweater. She lugs 2 eco-green market bags full of groceries. Oranges and bananas are heaped on top of each bag, ready to spill with each small footstep. I ask her if she needs any help with the heavy load. The woman glares at me with cat's eye marbles, filling onion lenses of her thick glasses. On tiptoes, she jumps back, clutching the grocery bags like threatened infants. Sorry, I say, and walk to the other side of the street. Moments later, I hear a loud shh sound in her direction. It's the girl with the anime eyes, squishing her market bags tight. Her hiss is rhythmic, like a sweating water sprinkler. She wards me away with her constant sss. After she turns the corner near 14th, the sound of steam dissipates, quieted further by the calming sycamores. I slither down the damp side street, whistling between my teeth and split tongue under boughs of alligator pines. And speaking of Boulder, segue, this is called Boulder. This is from a dream. And as most of you know, writers, dreams are often a very interesting source of material. And this, sort of well, I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to give it any explanation. Boulder. I'm fallen from my sacred petrified tree on Mars, tumbling down a blood soil hill, finally resting in a sullen dry riverbed, quenching my thirst with dust. Then the slow climb up the hill, the sand grabbing up to my ankles. I tumble, bound to this boulder of self, footsteps retracing footprints I've climbed many times, back to the cold arms of a rocky perch. For a moment, when the stone arms briefly warm, an image of an aqua oasis puffs like rain clouds in my head. Thirst nearly quenched, the shade cools me with parchment leaves. Shy stars in a red night sky, serene sand in a valley, and then I fall. Marianne and I were talking about a particular poem I'd written. I'm working with a musician in Moorhead. Her name's Terry Mono, and she's a professor of music, and she's an excellent classical pianist. And this last year, we decided to collaborate with one another and do work with classical music and poetry. And this is a particular piece called "The Stranger." And what happened was, I know for you writers out there, that revision can sometimes be difficult. Well, and sometimes the source or the inspiration to revise comes from unlikely places. And in this case, the music that was created for this piece became the grist of the revision, helped me revise this and make it tighter. So if we had a piano player here, I'd say hit it, pound those horse teeth, but we don't have anybody here, so we'll just go with this. The Stranger. The last time I saw Carl was on the corner of Main and 6th by the M&H, still in the tan Rainer shine coat and matching pants. His hair close cropped like Curly from the Three Stooges, silver wire rims that seemed to swallow his tiny brown eyes. His Buddha grin like his suit, always there, no matter the weather. The last time I saw Carl, we talked the day before his next supply of meds. He told me how his mother spoke to him in violet whispers from her home among the rows of proper headstones, consoling him one moment, damning him the next. It's the only time I ever saw Carl's smile recede, a low tide, a small quake in the corners of his tight eyes. The last time I saw Carl, he was at the keys of a baby grand, gently arranging his fingers on the keys, progressions in Phrygian and Mixolydian scales. The afternoon sun cast light on the piano's ascendant open lid, harmonics of light reflecting off the strings. I watched as Carl extended the chords, conjuring long melodies, weaving in and under the majors and minors. Time suspended, even pressure on a sustain pedal, final notes floating through windows on pure light. I asked him if the piece was by Rachmaninoff. Carl paused. No, that was me. By the way, have you ever read The Stranger, Camus? No, I said, I haven't. I did, and it fractured my life. Carl's hands stiffened as he brought his hammer fists down on the keys. I said, I'm sorry about that. Don't worry about it. If I hadn't read Camus, I wouldn't be here now. I think of Carl as I look out at our backyard, think of a melody in an unfamiliar piece, the sustained warm wind whispering through fragrant stalks of purple hostas. Beyond the rise of our tall brown fence, I hear the thick traffic on Main, sidewalks filled with grinning strangers. And at the risk of offending everybody, I'm going to read this piece. It's called My Own Boss. And I wrote this with the idea, well, okay, if you're your own boss, what happens if you turn out to be an asshole? My own boss. I'm my own employee, self-taught schmo, self-made asshole, chewing a soggy stogie in the corner of my mouth, yap and drool out the other side, kick my gum-bottom brown vinyl shoes up on the lead-heavy desk, daydream about boffin blonde Betties and tight-ass skirts while I shuffle stuff in and out the mail slots. The black phone's multi-lines are silent, but I'm ready to grab it at the drop of minimum wage. I yell into the yellow adjoining room at phantom peons. Get crackin', assholes. Quit sandbagging. Kiss my big bleach button. You might get an extra nickel in your paycheck. There's 100 Slavs better than you dying for this job. I could take the afternoon off. Head on and out the door for grub with a crab cracker. Dip my lunch in brown butter. Ooze out the cigar chew inside of my mouth. I'd rather wait here to see who shows up, late from lunch, who shows up at all. I whiffle the thought of cracking the whip, realizing soon that I'm the only one in my mossy room. No one here but me, my own boss, alone. I'm going to read a few pieces from Sugartown. Sugartown is what I think of in terms of where I live, Moorhead. Sugartown's sort of a Valentine for Moorhead. We all write about the places that we've lived in a lot and things and surroundings, and I thought, well, I've got enough things here, I'll put them together, I'll rake them together in a pile and put a clip on them, and I'll call it Sugartown. And so I read some pieces earlier, and I don't think I'm going to read the same pieces again because I got tired of them already, so I want to read something different. So I'll read this one because my mom never made these. It's beef pot pies because I don't think there's ever been a poem written about beef pot pies. And at one point in my life I loved them, now I'm afraid of them. So this is called beef pot pies. Beef pot pies, just like the ones mother never baked, so warm, so brown, tender crust with a paste of meat and veggies and a ladle of rusty gravy. Potpourri pie, flash frozen, a bit of carrot, a bit of lard, leftovers, surrounded in a pie shell with a tin underneath and a box all around, label on the front in bold white and red. Pot pie, slow going down, oozing over each and every rib in my chest, an inner vest of cholesterol, indefinitely digesting on the pies mother never used to make. Pretty heavy. As Mary and Ann and I were talking earlier, we were talking about being serious and taking yourself too seriously, and there's many times I don't take myself too seriously, and sometimes when I've read or listened to a poet who's read too many serious things in a row, I have to even sit back and say, come on, man, come on. There's got to be at least something funny that you've noticed or observed, and of course there's so much seriousness now, and so it just seems like with poetry there's a way to enter that area with some humor, make it better. All right, and earlier, I'm going to forget your name, is it Jerry? He'd read a particular piece from Sugartown that he liked, and so I thought I would dedicate this to him. It's Rose Girl. Well, that's okay, isn't it? This is America. I can dedicate this to a man, can't I? All right. Well, there you go. This is called Rose Girl, and this is based on an actual person, a young woman who used to go through the clubs and the bars who'd sell roses when people were good and drunk, and she made a lot of money. Rose Girl. Rose Girl carries her wicker fireside basket under her left arm, strolling under the dim lights of Ralph's, her first stop. Long-stemmed royalty roses end in short green vials of agua. Her straight black slacks and ruffled white shirt offset the flowers, making them redder under fluorescent bulbs. $3 a stem. Rose Girl never threw a hard, fast pitch to sell her roses. Sorry husbands, drunken hopefuls, wishful thinkers, whiskey dreamers at every sticky table. She seldom accepts flowers purchased from her basket. It is an impure gesture. Clearing 50 a night, triple on Valentine's, she slowly circles the bar twice, moving on to the next tavern on her list of 6. Rose Girl knows every bar, everywhere, is starving for flowers, especially in twilight when few things grow and the brief glow of red velvet petals is enough, even for an evening starving for flowers. Rose Girl, however, is full. I'm going to start reading some pieces from the book that I'm trying to find a home for. It's called Ghost Worlds. And when I thought of the title, I thought at first, well, people are going to think this is all about paranormal EVP stuff. And some of it is actually, but for the most part, the idea of the ghost worlds is much broader, or I'd like to think of it as much broader, as perhaps it could be misremembered things. I remember this, but then somebody reminds you that's not how it happened. Misremembered histories. Did you hear something, over your shoulder? What was it? What did it sound like? Did you see somebody that looked like somebody you hadn't seen in 5 years, or was it a complete stranger? And so it's, pretty broad. And, ghosts and visitations too, ectoplasm. That as well. So I'll read a few pieces here from this. I'll read this one. This is called Java Dive. This is a poem that I used to do poetry slams a lot when I was younger, and I started doing them again to see, because I'm older now, and I'm probably going to be eating soft food a lot in the years to come. So I figured I'd just do this and see if I could still do this again. And this is a poem that I used to slam a lot. It's called Java Dive, and it's because I love coffee in the morning. It's the pick me up to get me going. Java Dive. Out of bed and chicken skin feet hit freezing wooden floor. I'm half awake and sleepy seeds still cling to the corners of stony, dreamy eyes. I'm running slow-mo on a go-go cold Minnesota November morning, focusing with chilly will on the coffee cooker to pour out from a pouting spout a mean slow stream of steaming Java. Shiver and strut, peel off paisley pajamas and jump into cup, sproing off the breadboard diving board, feet together, palms lock in prayer overhead, and kerploosh. A 9.5 Olympic swan dive into a mug. I swim and swoosh around the inside hemisphere of the mug, dive under the hot, murky brown, and feel stinging caffeine peeling eyelids awake. I poodle paddle across the ripples, crossing back and forth from one lip of the cup to the other. Australian crawl, climb up curving handle and cannonball. Throw sienna over scalp, splash and spit like a greasy, grinning gray goose. Just plain roll in it till half the Java's all over the kitchen floor. Towel off with a big paper coffee filter. Drain the cup in 2 guiltless gulps. And I read this one earlier, and I'm going to read it again because I just like it. My father was a police officer, and he always had these boots. That's what I remember about his uniform. And this is called Big Mother Boots. My father wore cop boots, or let me take this back, my big mother boots. My father was a local cop. He wore Wellingtons, cop boots he called them, not cowboy boots. Wellingtons are stable, square, not pointed at the toe. Father always raises a high shine in those cop boots, snapping that thick cotton rag and dabbing black wax from a Kiwi polish can. Every morning he'd slide the shiny cop boots on, head off to work at the cop shop. He'd hop on his Harley Servo and chalk mark parked cars, tag them. I watched from the north window of the house, catch myself staring at those big, black, magnificent boots he wore. No one in their right gourd would mess with a man wearing boots like that, the way my father wore his cop boots. Father retired his cop boots and badge a few years back. Now I wear boots, big engineer's boots, black, square at the toe, like Wellingtons, cop boots. I pound out a beat on Maine, the rhythm of the leather on the concrete over and over. I count out a mantra under my breath as the boots smack, smack, smack against the pavement. I know why my father loved those cop boots. They keep you walking like those boots got minds of their own. And this poem I'm dedicating to Oregon and Washington and Colorado. This is called Marijuana. I'm going to tell you a true story about marijuana. I was recently down, it's a true story about marijuana. And what happened was I was going to a conference down Southwest, the Southwest Popular Culture Conference in New Mexico. And we were on the plane and we were flying over Colorado, and I asked the steward, since we're flying over Colorado airspace, can we fire up? And about 6 other people around me said, can we do that? So we didn't, though, because I'm a state employee. All right, so marijuana is the name of this. My friends called it canary, a secret code for raging ragweed capable of complete stonification. I don't know if anyone was foiled by this foul buzzword. I mean, it was never phrased, do you want to feed the canary? Do you want to pet the canary? Do you want to teach the canary a new word? Or do you want to kiss the canary? It was always, do you want some canary? Like they were partaking in a bizarre parakeet kind of Thanksgiving, complete with secret herb stuffing. The absolute giveaway is when they said, hey, pass the canary or quit hogging the frickin' canary. Any hint of a secret was now as obvious as a seed in a dish or a bud on a plant. The talk of canaries subsided, and in the haze of the encroaching Amazon jungle, the caws and musings of minor birds, budgies, and macaws hung in the air, sweet smoke from a dying bird. I had a profanely strange childhood, okay? Let me make that clear. All right, what else do I want to read you? I read Crazy Days earlier, but this doesn't look like a Crazy Days crowd. This is called In My Ford Escort on Highway 212, and I don't know if you've heard this before. I mentioned it in the poem, but there was something keeping in line with the theme of ghost worlds. A friend of mine told me in Montana once that if a monarch butterfly is flitting around you, it means somebody who's deceased is connecting with you, okay? Or they're letting you know things are okay. So I'll set the poem up with that. In my Ford Escort on Highway 212, along the straight stretch of Highway 212, an orange cloud ahead of me, I slowed down, surrounded by an exultation of orange and black monarch butterflies. My Escort crawls, careful not to even hit one. For several seconds they swirl and wing around the windows of my car, these messengers off to open destinations beyond this tired road and cornfields. Fiery whirlwind of memories, a clouded clover meadow, sun illuminating each flower. Like pollen inebriating a bee, my mind clouded with thoughts of people I've forgotten. To see a monarch means the spirit of a dead loved one is visiting you. Here the air is filled with a moving tapestry of orange and black. I see these butterflies and realize there are more memories, intersecting flight paths, layers of warm air holding the black lace wings aloft for steady glides. The part of sails and the multitude of tangerine wakes, I share the lift from heat blooming from rich black earth. The monarchs share their flying space with me. The ground recedes, and I join their haloed ranks over green and gold. Under iris sky, I press the gas pedal and sail down this empty road, a plane gating speed for takeoff, then joining their space. One place that I found is my home, is New Mexico. And I went there years ago, and I did the goofy beat writer thing. I found a place on a mountain in Lincoln, a home in Lincoln National Forest to rent. So I'm on top of a mountain. You know how Gary Snyder can you get? And I'm sitting up there, and I was told that there were these wonderful rock formations and fossils, and I thought, well, I haven't done that since I was a kid. So digging in the dirt, So I did that, and I was kind of stuck with my writing at the time. And this experience kind of opened up a new vein, so to speak, of writing for me. So this is called Fossils. With my bricklayer's hammer, cheap brown gloves, and protective goggles, I force another crack between layers of sedimentary rock. Sparks leap, mineral chips deflect off face and safety lenses. Gloves tear on sharp stones, dampening with red. I drink from a warm gallon jug of unsweetened green tea as sweat soaks my t-shirt and jeans. I reach for a better ledge and slide straight down 40 feet of near vertical mountain road cut. I pried away the rocks I used to climb my way up. My loud laugh echoes up the tall, scabrous alligator pines. Here at the bottom, fossils begin revealing themselves. A complete bone-colored seashell, not the impression of one, shows itself from sandstone. Nearby, a conical shell print spirals deep into a fist-sized stone. Near my bloodied right hand, a bountiful family of quartz points divulge themselves to me in a small geode amphitheater. Blood crusts over recent wounds. I drink huge gulps of tea, wash my face with a handful. Waking the dead, I whisper to the rock face. I listen to a seashell, its ancient impression filled with quartz crystals gleaming in the mountain sun, and a voice no louder than a sigh tells me it begins here through the bedrock, beginnings and grounding. This mountainside was the bottom of a great sea. Imagine me alive in the sand of this deep, breathing, living. The voice babbles like water in a small creek until it fades away. Okay, I'm still good on time here? Okay, this is, I'm going to read a couple pieces I don't normally read, just, earlier at the library we talked about poems that you read aloud and their performance, or there's something about them that you can share, and there's some that are hard to share, and so this would fall under the hard to share. And it was something that I wanted to write. It was written to a colleague of mine who I was an MFA student, actually, I think it was an MFA student years ago. And this is called the writing prompt. And this is one of those pieces, kind of like, you have pieces that just sort of fall out, they just happen. It's just like they're gifts. This is one of those that came out, it was sort of like, at first it wasn't a welcome gift, but then you just kind of accept it. The writing prompt. As a writing prompt in our creative writing class, the instructor tells us to share a secret with everyone around the thick oak library table for a possible future writing assignment. When my turn comes, I tell about stealing $1 from my mother's purse, spending a quarter, and putting the remaining 75 cents in my sister's top dresser drawer, then ratting her out to Mom. It's a lie. Alice Cooper told this story once in an interview. What I really want to share is how week after week I keep talking myself out of suicide. There are so many ways to do myself in. a sharp knife across the wrists in a warm tub of water, or maybe a serrated edge to really tear up the veins. I'm nearly settled on a fistful of antidepressants and a fifth of cheap whiskey. I've been that close, weighing life that whole night long, standing on the tight precipice of to be or not. When morning came and I was still alive, I decided to be. The punchline? I need to show up for class, something to keep me moving, mostly forward. Somehow my voice matters here. My writing matters. But you're not ready for this secret. So I lie to you about stealing $1 from my mother's purse when I was little and how I tried to blame my little sister. Owning your poems, owning your poems. This is, I don't know, is there a word for, ekphrasis, you write poetry about pictures, but is there poetry that you write based on hearing a song? Hearing music? Well, if that's ekphrasis, we could call this yuck-phrasis, right? Okay, moving from suicide to death, regular death. A friend of mine who owned a bookstore passed on about the time that the bookstore was closing. And we all, we're always, when we hear the news, there's always music is close by. That's our relationship with it, or at least mine is. And the song that I heard playing on the radio was Hey Jude by the Beatles. And so that song locked into that moment. Well, I tried to write a fitting elegy, if you will. And what happened was Hey Jude kept coming up. So I thought, well, what can I do with this? And so I found these other ideas, these other sources coming in. And so this is, I didn't want to change anything too much. It's just called Jude. I've washed my soul in Hey Jude after every funeral I've attended since my closest friend died. Consolation in the words of a majestic pop song strung in a spinning disc across the universe, ever revolving. Paul sings, "Make it better," and the music wells up in me like a spring of light and life in my eyes. The golden rolling loop of la da 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 repeating, joined with abbey horns and strings, percussive piano, welcome notes breaking the leaden sorrel shackles on feet. Voices merge in this hymn and chorus as the melody regenerates, restoring notes to a seamless beginning. And the fade so gradual and grand, the slow procession of bright souls and the primal affirmation of yes, illuminating the space in shadowed valleys, leading me beside cool, calm waters, for there is no cold coda for the finality of things. Yes, I was once a lost cause, will find it in my heart and under my skin, the reaching of arms across, about and above, an exaltation of everything in the now and after, warm summers in the comfort of green pastures. Yes, I will make the pilgrimage, ghosts of my ancestors trailing in my even humble walking wake. I follow the rods and staffs of sound, recalling the sterile sting of mine enemies, how the shoulder's burden lightens, the rising sun shines in my heart, making it better. Somehow I believe I've stunned you. That's okay. This is called ghostwriting. This is one of those paranormal activity things. The guys walk around with little recorders and EVP, and is there anybody here? They ask questions, and then they get something back. Get out, which is really cool. I like that part. Well, this is ghostwriting, and what if there were a kind of ghostwriting for writers where it was what would happen if words started showing up places on paper and things. So this is called ghostwriting. He hung blank sheets of paper on the refrigerator, his office door, the clothesline in the backyard, the silver snout of the bathtub faucet, then waited. When he looked closely at the paper, at the right angle, in the proper degree of moderate sunlight, he could see letters, glyphs, words, phrases, whole paragraphs written with some otherworldly spectral ink. The first ones appeared on computer paper he left on the clothesline. Outside there were whirlwinds of words floating around, captured on the paper from lone ghosts and free-floating ideas. He quickly wrote the words down, documenting the date and time of every discovery. He became a new kind of recorder, a reader of invisible words, a word whisperer. He papered up every square inch of his house, even the aquarium and dog kennel. His office walls and windows were wallpapered with stray parchment, all in the hope of capturing words. Finally, he applied yellow sticky notes over every visible portion of his body and closed his eyes. Letter by letter, the words manifested themselves on every sticky note, words from one yellow square colliding with words from another. The creep of caterpillar alphabets crawl over his skin, each manifesting new wounds and new meaning. So, do we have time for one or two more? Am I getting it is it cutting? Is that Stu back there or John? Am I okay? Okay, thank you. My wife says I am not okay. So, all right. I'm going to read a couple of more slammy type performance pieces to kind of close things out. And let's see here. I'm going to read this. Okay. In terms of being influenced to write and things, I enjoyed poetry a lot when I was younger. Bought my first copy of Edgar Allan Poe's complete Edgar Allan Poe when I was like 12. My folks read to me, very blue collar folks. They read to me and helped me spell, and they read me comic books and nursery rhymes, and I, had access to music. But I would have to say that the two people or groups of people that influenced me the most to write were Patti Smith and the Ramones. Because Patti Smith she was doing something with music and poetry I had never heard before, and the Ramones because they were making it look all so simple. And I figured if the Ramones can write songs, I sure as hell can write poetry, right? So this is a piece, the reference to the fifth Beatle. Well, this is the fifth Ramone, and I'm kind of imagining myself as being the fifth Ramone. So. Hey, I'm not talking Stone Door, Kink, or even Beatle. I mean Ramone. And I want to be the fifth Ramone. The one hardly seen but always there. Rockin' hard, keeping the faith. Man just railing hard on a black and white guitar. Wearing a uniform of ripped jeans, t-shirt, old tennis shoes, and a black leather jacket. Can't forget the black leather jacket. Keeping it simple, keeping it proud and punk, looking like cartoons come to life because rock is animation. Goofy, totally comic book. Johnny would shout out the count, 1, 2, 3, 4. We ram into another song, clocking it in at 2 minutes per, setting land speed records for songs in every elbow-to-elbow dive, rampage through 3-chord songs and stack them like cordwood knock-knocks. 20 songs in a 40-minute set. Keep the power coming through the Marshall stacks. Freight trains friggin' all night long. No solos here. No extended, long-winded whining. Hendrix come, Beck come, Clapton come, Stevie Ray, heavy saturation, alkaline battery in the fuzz box, crank it up to 10 thing. No screeching, squawking, wah wah wah, bawling like a nasal child. Gets too jizzed when you complicate it. Pound out the chords and the copper wound wires till it sounds like chainsaws and heat. Then you got it good. I'm that fifth Ramone, one of the kings of noise from Queens, living and riding low, keeping the faith, riding a loud guitar, howling through the feedback till the moon rises and then some, lay to rest the dead heroes and let the new ones raise the dust with dancing. Okay. Oh, where's it at? Oh, there it is. This one is called Used Poetry, and I think I'll close out with used poetry. And so I thank everybody for showing up tonight and supporting me and poetry. And if you don't like the kind of poetry I do, fine. There's a gazillion poets out there, so explore them, right? Give them a shot. And again, I thank Marianne for setting this up and being a very welcome guest on your university. And like I said, students, not grown-ups, but students, all right? You guys are so lucky. You have a wonderful group of people who care about what you're doing and your future. So this is called Used Poetry. The idea for this came from looking in the newspaper, and I was thinking about poetry, and again, my brain damage, and I got to thinking, well, what happens if your new poem finally dies on you and you need to look for a used one because you don't have enough money to get a new one? So this is called Used Poetry, and this is what I'll close with tonight. Used Poetry. After many long miles, my poem finally gave out. What can you expect of a poem after 15 years of hard driving? Not to say that I overworked the poem or anything. I didn't try to rod on it, peel out with it. I filled it with premium metaphors, never settling for less. Changed the punctuation every couple thousand miles. No different from the next poet, really. It served me well, but its time had come. It took too long getting started in the morning. On several occasions this past winter, I had to jumpstart it with cables attached to another poem. Sometimes the battery in the poem was so far gone I had to plug it into an anthology overnight just to get it to spark the next morning. The poem also showed peculiarities that I just couldn't let slide any longer. Sometimes I'd just be cruising along, line after line, no problems, poem just purring away. Then it would start cutting out right in the middle of a scan, cat, 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 then purring again like nothing was ever wrong. But the rhythm was off. A belt was going bad. It was also burning more and more punctuation at an alarming rate. I'd have to add 2 quarts of metrics to the little manifold to ensure a straight read-through. Even then, the poem blew clouds of blue smoke. Yes, the real trouble started about 2 years ago, after the accident. My poem got rear-ended by a drunk guy with a rock song lyric. Yeah, he had a beater of a lyric too. No insurance, nothing. Here I am with a poem all smashed to hell in the rear end and a bent frame to boot. It took a linguist and an English professor to pull out all of the dents. They did the best they could with it. You know how it is with a poem wreck, though. Once you've had an accident with your poem, it never reads the same again. So here I am, reading through the used poetry section of the paper. I can't really afford to get a new one. You never know what kind of abuse a used poem has taken. Could have been rotted on, stripped down, or rolled, who knows. I just hope I find a sonnet owned by a little old blue-haired lady. Someone like that would really know how to take care of a poem, always reading it slow and only on Sundays, taking it for regular grammar and simile maintenance, putting in the right metaphors to keep the engine from punning. Whether I find a good used poem or not, it's always tough trading in a poem you've reliably read for so long. Thank you very much. Thank you. Q&A. Did anybody have any questions they'd like to ask or comments or? Yes.
I have a question. I'm not a writer, but I'm surrounded by them.
Sure.
And I often hear them talking about the revision process and wrestling with the revisions and knowing when you need to revise or. So when you talked about The Stranger, I wanted to know, did you think you were done with that poem, but then when you started collaborating with the musician, you realized you had to make the revisions? Or did you know all along you were going to make revisions? Or was it really influenced by the music?
Well, boy, I could answer that with a jillion answers. But the first thing is that as writers, I think we get real close to our stuff, our material, our stuff. And sometimes it's right in front of us that we need to change it, and we can't. And what was happening with the music was, I was reading it. And when you read things aloud, which I encourage my students to do, you're catching things that you don't normally catch when you read it. You know, your ear reads things differently. I started reading it and think, this sounds horrible, or it's so wordy, and instead of saying this long, precocious line which doesn't fit anything, why don't I just say, is that Rachmaninoff? And there's the reference point, And so, that's simply how I did it. I had something like Violet Whisper, and I decided Violet Whispers, like there's more than one mom that's giving Carl grief, So revision is tough for everybody, I think. I think some people look at it as a game. For me, I've got to write the draft, and then I have to leave it alone and come back to it as, for lack of a better term, a stranger, so that I can look at it as if as a reader as opposed to a writer. Does that?
Yes.
Did I dodge the question successfully?
You can always revise it later.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with writers. If we write for pleasure and things, we have the time to do it. If you're a student, you've got deadlines to meet and things like that. And so it's, you do what you got to do, I guess. That was a good question. Is anybody writing questions or more head questions? Yes.
So, how do you view love poems? What's the difference between a love poem and a not a love poem? And if there is a difference, how do you write a love poem? Where do you begin?
Well, it's funny because at the library I read what I thought was a love poem. And the love poem was, well, my students in creative writing right now, it's an intro to creative writing class I teach, and all of them are going to go hell-bent on love poems. That or death, and I think my running joke is, why don't you write a love poem about, or about a dead person, or something, and get real crazy. Zombies in love, right? And what it is I think that love is such a beat up word anyway. It's an abstraction like freedom. It's like, well, okay, I know what love is, but really, how do you want to define it? And so something like love needs to be defined by example. And if it's your example, then that's pretty specific. So the piece I wrote called Botany is about my wife leaving for work, and it's always hard. It's hard for me right now missing her because we're such great friends and such great soulmates that I looked at her cup and she'd left an imprint of her lipstick, and it reminded me of an exotic grapevine leaf, and it seemed like this had now become a relic because she'd kissed it. And so I go to the sink and I wash the cup and I put it away, and I've got that etched in my head. And to me, that's kind of a love poem, because it's like, would I ever do that? Would I do that for any of my male colleagues, or get that cup out of here? But there's something about the idea of that, or peeling an orange for somebody that you care about, or leaving a light on, or writing an imaginary letter, or I think it's the acts of not just saying I love you, but it's the acts of love that define the love you're talking about. Does that make sense? Because there's all kinds of love. What do you mean by love? You mean you love a romantic person? You love for a one-night thing? You love because it's family? Do you love somebody because you hate them so much? You need to, it's such a, semantically, it's such a really beat up, it's an overused word, and it shouldn't be. It's pretty personal. Love.
Part of the reason I ask is that Garrison Keillor has a contest going right now, the writers in here, the poets in here, where you submit a love poem. You can submit one love poem, have it done by April 15th, and they're going to pick 3 out of all the love poems they get. And if you go on to the site, it's his publication site, he's having poets write how to write a love poem. Respond to that question. How do you write a love poem? And so I think everybody ought to submit a love poem. And check that out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a simple answer for that one, but there's so much of it out there, and there's so much of it that's good, but I think there's a million times more that's just bad, Just, but then if it's somebody who never writes poetry and they write you a love poem like I love you because I love you and I find you lovely in your love, if they write something like that, you can't really get on their case. I mean, they're trying, right? So.
I love your answer about where do we get peeling orange lipstick, that's.
Yeah, I mean, friendship, isn't that love? Isn't it your colleagues and something that you love to do? Isn't that kind of a relationship as well? I mean, I am married. I don't know what else to say. Anybody have any questions? Any more questions? Any takes on poetry or? It's Midwest quiet. Thank you very much.